If you're tired of me, don't watch. Because I don't need people to listen if they're not going to pay attention. And this postmodern utopian idealism that you can destroy an entire identity of a people and build them back up in your image doesn't work on the grand scale. You know, this equal opportunity, equal outcome, mumbo jumbo. Because the truth of the matter is that us humans, are not created equal. We're equal in the eyes of the Creator, but not in reality. We have different intelligences, we have different amounts of resources, and we have different levels of community support and family integrity. My issue with what's going on right now with the propaganda of the liberal government and its supporters, you know, these people, these usurpers, these invaders, these interlopers, these infiltrators that seek to tear us all down by the destruction of symbolism and history and rewriting and reprogramming the very psychology of our people. You know, and so what's the statement? That everyone in Canada is an immigrant? This is not true. This is not true. Some of us have been here for generations. And some of us have to emigrate from coast to coast just to have a job and just to have a living. You know, I've lived like a homeless person, and I've lived in multiple cities across the nation, in hotels, Airbnbs, and housing supplied by the contract. And after a while, you know what they feel like? They feel like prison cells. And so you have to do something about your life, but you're not always in the place that you want to be with the change of seasons. And, you know, the reasons for being there after a while are just non-existent. So it might as well be servitude. Because without the human spirit and without the arts, then there is no humanity, there's no culture, there's no identity. And this replacement and this, this support given to people from outside, you know, there's an overstay of welcome here. There really is. And then this utopian idealism that I learned about when I was very young, you know, and through the support and the learning of my age, of other people, I'm here now. You know, yelling into this camera, hopefully not a one-sided conversation because of social media, but the truth of the matter is, this is where we are now. And to those of you who say that we don't have a culture, and that white people and Canadians and North Americans themselves don't have any value, that we have nothing to contribute, you are the enemy. You are the enemy of yourselves. And slavery exists throughout all of human history. It just changes form. And hence one of the other reasons for this history of propaganda, you know, is to communicate the fact that, you know, conflict, slavery, war, and weaponized artwork, right? Like that here. Not that this is a weapon. That's the result of a breakup of a family that didn't need to happen because of socioeconomic and political pressures. You see, if you wanted to go, we're going to talk a little bit of personal history here in a small summary. I was born in Ajax, and my parents met at the Toronto Star, as far as I can remember, working themselves to the bone. right? Delivering papers, having to ride their bikes to work, having very little, and doing very much with very little, as it was with those generations. It's not like my parents had a whole lot to work with. They weren't rich, right? They had to earn everything that they have. And I've had to work for everything that I have. So to say that I'm undeserving of these things, and to say that they're undeserving of the things that they've worked for, is complete and utter BS. And it's undeserving, and it's insulting. Because the supremacy of any group of humanity, or any human family over another, is racism. And we can't put any more labels on it because of that. As I've said before, I'm not a white supremacist. I'm an ethnic supremacist, which means looking out for your own family and your own genetic lineage. Because if we don't, there won't be any family left. And this is the issue with this utopian ideal, right? With Trudeau and his government, and then the NDP with Jagmeet Singh. Is that they're trying to exert power and coercion for historical revenge. And I've had enough of it. I don't need to be told how to act as a Canadian, and how to be a Canadian, and how to be a citizen of the world. I don't need to be told, because I've lived the life of hardship, not on purpose, but because I had to. There was no other choice. When I was young, I just posted a bunch of photos from when I was in cadets. And what I wanted to be when I was in cadets was be a fighter pilot. From a very young age, I always wanted to be involved in military aviation, or aviation in general. Because that was what gave me passion for life. And passion for life is the reason for living. And when those passions of life are taken away, then it's cultural suicide. And suicide is the cancer of culture, because it just spreads the grief on to everybody else. And then when we use chemical warfare via synthetic RNA viruses to wipe out a certain segment and demographic of the population, to erase history and rewrite it in advantage for the person in power, or people in power, for the rich and the disgraced, I'm very, very well sure that the British Crown is not very happy with you. Those of you who are in Parliament right now, they're absolutely disgusted. And you know that the British Crown, regardless of what anybody thinks, is still one of the richest families in the entire world. The wealthiest, the most deepest pockets. And even they have to bow down to the banks of the Rothschilds and other financial institutions, because without the banks, there's no trade, apparently. No middleman, no trade. That's the whole point behind cryptocurrency, was to give the individual buying power back to the individuals, and to flip the table inside the temple. Because the Pharisees, the ones that insult the Creator inside the temple of worship, and put money as a higher ideal than life itself, shall not and will not be given any more advantage. You are the reason for the decline in society. You parasites. You are the parasites who have not worked an entire day in your life, because it was given all to you by a golden spoon and thrusted in your mouth by a silver fork. You know how many people out there suffer? How many committed suicide over COVID? Because of financial pressures, of societal pressures, and because of the medical industrial complex. By use of ignorance and coercion, and the death of the human spirit through burnout and PTSD, and the suppression of emotion through pharmaceuticals, antidepressants, the grand availability of alcohol and marijuana, And the marijuana is absolutely incredibly powerful. It's not like it used to be. And in some cases, it actually induces psychosis. And that's the whole point, is to have induced psychosis in the society. Mass paranoia and psychosis. So that nobody can actually make a decision for themselves and think critically, in conjunction and in correlation to this black mirror. Everything gets memory hold. The attention span, the memory. In one ear, out the other. Because of the dopamine feedback loop, the addiction and the algorithm, and the programming by the people who have such anger and angst about the past and seek revenge by means of genetic engineering, demographic genocide, and social engineering through social media, propaganda, and dating applications. This is where we are now. After so much collective trauma, no wonder, right? So via education, here I have. You see how much history English people have? You see that? See how much history that is involved of Northern Europeans within America, and the natives that cooperated and were welcoming, and they were very happy to have us here because they didn't have to be nomadic anymore. Not all native tribes were nomadic. Some of them just wanted to stay put, and they were very happy to have stone shelters and different ways of living, guns, and clothing and so forth. Woven blankets, new technologies, things that made life a little bit easier. Because there's tribes that cooperated with the newcomers and those who didn't, and vice versa. Understandably throughout the history. There's people in Canada that don't know about that don't remember the Louis Rebellion, the history of Upper and Lower Canada, Confederation and PEI, the Battle of Saskatchewan, and so on and so forth. Or the War of 1812, and the Loyalists versus the Separatists, in parallel to the foundation of the United States at the very same time. At the very same time, they just chose a different route. They wanted to be absolutely independent because they were so sick of the British Crown at the time. Which I don't blame them. I really don't. There's a reason why they had so much support and so many people. And historically, when it comes to being, or like as a principle, that soldiers would be given plots of land after being in service to a royalty. And that's why pioneers came here to North America, was to have a new life in the new world, because Europe was getting too crowded. And there wasn't any opportunities. It was just slavery and serfdom under lords and ladies and barons and baronesses. And it was like, either we go or we all die. And, as I was saying with the statistics, with what was it, about 23 to 25% of the new immigrants since 2016, that's representation of the overall population, are from India. And within 3 generations, there won't be any Canadians left. It's like China and the mongrels, right? There's not any real Chinese people left from the Qing dynasty, if I remember correctly. So continuing on, right? This is the reason why, again, all these pressures and all this coercion and all this cloak and dagger stuff being done by the RCMP with possible false flag operations, with that incident in Nova Scotia being our Churchill, being our Church Christ, rather. or Christchurch of New Zealand, an impetus and a reason to take away guns. Because, firearms and whatever are the first line of defense against tyranny, which is what I agree with the Americans. The land of the free, or what's this quote? So the Tree of Liberty, that's it. In a letter to William Stephen Smith, the son-in-law of John Adams, Thomas Jefferson used the phrase, the Tree of Liberty. So the Tree of Liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants, which means those who stand for the government at the time have to be done away with. Goodbye. Goodbye. You're no longer useful to the people here. You have become the enemy for which you sought to take down through a utopian idealism. As I said, and I wonder if you're watching this, Mr. Prime Minister, Miss Finance Minister, and all your supporting cabinet. Those of you who have been in power so long, you don't remember what it is to work a day in your life if you knew how to do that in the first place. With your hands, your very hands, to dig a trench, to hold a shovel in your hand, to spackle drywall, to turn a wrench and bash your knuckles on something, to bend up some metal, to make a table, and to be in service for somebody else, to hold a rifle, to clean it, to march 8 kilometers with 25 pounds in your back after giving blood, to hike up a mountain without assistance, without a helicopter, to refine oil from its crude oil all the way up to its jet fuel. If you're not involved in these things, then you don't know what it takes to be in power. You think that just because you're in the position that you're in, that you're deserving, and because you came from a place of upper crust and high society. But 3 generations from wealth to ruin, sir and ma'am. 3 generations. So I'm going to read you a piece of English culture here. And this is Lord Byron. Right? This is 213 out of George Gordon. Don Juan, right? But now at 30 years, my hair is gray. I wonder what will be like at 40. I thought of peruke the other day. My heart is not much greener, and in short, I have squandered my whole summer away. 'Twas May, and feel no more the spirit to retort. I have spent my life, both interest and principle, and deemed not what I deemed my soul invincible. No more, no more. Oh, never more on me the freshness of the heart can fall like dew, which out of all the lovely things we see extracts emotion beautiful and new. Hived in our bosom like the bag of the bee, thinkest thou the honey with those objects grew? Alas, 'twas not in them, but in thy power, to double even the sweetness of a flower. No more, no more, oh, never more, my heart, canst thou be my sole word, my universe. Once all in all, but now a thing apart. Thou canst not be my blessing or my curse. The illusion's gone forever, and thou art insensible, I trust, but none the worse. And in thy stead, I have a deal of judgment. Though heaven knows how, if it ever found a lodgment, my days of love are over. Me no more. The charms of maid, wife, and still less of widow, can make the fool of which they made before. In short, I must not lead the life I did do. The credulous hope of mutual minds is o'er. The copious use of claret is forbid too. So for a good old gentlemanly vice, I think I must take up with avarice. Ambition was my idol, which was broken before the shrines of sorrow and of pleasure, and the two that have left me many a token, or which reflection may be at leisure. Now like Friar Bacon's brazen head, I've spoken. Is glittering youth, time was, times past. A chymic treasure is glittering youth, which I have spent betimes, my heart in passion and my head on rhymes. What is the end of fame, but to fill a certain portion of uncertain paper? Some liken it to climbing up a hill, whose summit, like all hills, is lost in vapor. For this men write, speak, preach, and heroes kill, and bards burn what they call their midnight taper. To have, when the original is dust, a name, wretched picture, and worse bust. What are the hopes of man? Old Egypt's king, Chepos, erected the first pyramid, and largest, thinking it was just the thing to keep his memory whole, and mummy hid. But somebody or other rummaging burglariously broke his coffin's lid. Let not a monument give you or me hopes, since not a pinch of dust remains of Chepos. But I, being fond of true philosophy, say very often to myself, alas, all things that have been born were born to die, and flesh, which death mows down to hay, is grass. You've passed your youth not so unpleasantly, and if you had o'er again, 'twould pass. So thank your stars that matters are no worse, and read your Bible, sir, and mind your purse. But for the present gentle reader, and still gentle purchaser, the bard, that's I, must, with permission, shake you by the hand, and so your humble servant, and goodbye. We meet again, if we should understand each other, and if not, I shall not try. Your patience further than by this short example, for well if others followed my example. Go, little book, from this my solitude. I cast thee on the waters, go thy ways. And if, as I believe, thy vein be good, the world will find thee after many days. When Sotheby's read and Wordsworth understood, I can't help putting in my claim to praise. The 4 first rhymes are Southerly's every line, and for God's sake, reader, take them, not for mine. I become Shiva, destroyer of worlds. And so I shall destroy yours with the power of literature, faith, and presence. Your days are over. I don't need a gun to kill. And neither do the rest of the Canadians. We don't need politics to destroy. For we are here and we will not be ignored. The death to a utopian ideal. Your propaganda is no more. And I will not tolerate it. Because you destroyed my life and many other young men's lives by supporting this gay washing and by supporting feminism, the corrupted kind, based out of Marxism and intersectionality. You destroyed the very economy and infrastructure that your father created in the face of the British Crown. You used your oil money and your associations to rise to power and then burn natives for which you wouldn't even give 5 minutes to in a meeting. I saw that video. I saw it. And then you go, what? Then there's rumors of you going to the Picton Pig farm for a huge party? And then there's witnesses that disappear And so many of those women along the Highway of Tears disappeared too, as prostitutes or victims of psychopaths and gang members and RCMP officers. And then homelessness and the intrusion of foreign investors that drive up the cost of living and then completely destroy the Canadian history with their own rage and revenge. No more. Because this is the history of propaganda right now. And you are history as of now.